So in this video, I wanted to discuss how to get line weight out of SketchUp and into Adobe Illustrator, specifically for a 3D drawing. So this is going to work for an isometric or perspective drawing, essentially. But you could also use it for any other like sectional perspective or any other 3D diagrams that you want to do. So in this particular example, I have this model which I've set up, and if I were to simply just export this, so if I came here and went down to Export DWG2D, and I hit that, there's a lot of options in here. We're not going to worry about those right now. We'll just hit Export. I'm not going to right now, but you would hit Export to get those lines out. What would happen if I switch over here to Illustrator now, and I go ahead and put in one of those drawings, okay, like you'll see here, and I put it in here. It looks all right. Let me move this here and actually change the layer that it's on. And I click off. This is okay, right? This comes in as a group, but this drawing doesn't have any line weight. So if I zoom in here, like everything is the same line weight, which leaves it fairly flat, and it's not following line weight conventions for an architectural rendering. So if I back up here and actually show you what we're talking about here, I am talking about this thing that says spatial edges. So in other words, like on the other side of this line, there's a hole here. So it drops off. So I always like to think of it as this line is touching the air. So there's air on the other side of it. You can see the same thing here, right? With this line, there's air below it because again, there's another hole. So we can see these instances with the windows here, and then with this line and that line, there's just air on the other side of those. So what we want to try and do is get all of those into our drawing without going in here and manually doing it. So you can imagine, like, look at all these little window openings, right? Like I could go in here, double click and go into this group, and then I would have to have some knowledge, of which ones are touching the air. So I'm holding shift and I'm trying to select all of these, and then maybe I could come over here to my stroke and then change the line weight and kind of bump it up. That's going to take forever, right? I would be here all day, like selecting all of these lines. I mean, I could try and do one and copy it, but not the best way to go about doing that, right? So let me reset those line weights there, just so you can see this flat version, right? So essentially, we want to get this to where we have line weight in it, and quickly. So I'll show you how to do that. So within SketchUp, the first thing you're going to need to do is maybe make a copy of your model. So you can see that my model is set up into different groups, right? I have all these different groups and then groups within groups. That's great for modeling, and you should definitely be working that way. But for getting line weight, it's actually going to cause some issues in that you can see, let me deselect this. You can see this bottom edge right here should not actually be dark in terms of line weight. SketchUp does a decent job about getting line weight in general, but at the edge of a group, it will add a really, really dark line, which in this case, that line does not need to be dark. So there's a lot of instances of that in this particular model. So the solution to this that I found is to just ungroup everything. So that's why I say it might be useful to actually make a copy of this particular model if you are still editing it or you still want to preserve your groups. For me, this is just a demo, so what I'm going to do is just click and drag over everything. You could also do Control A or something like that, and then just right-click and hit Explode. And I'm just going to continue to hit Explode, right-click and hit Explode until I can't anymore, right? So you can see it's kind of slowing down here a little bit because there's a lot of groups in here. Still got one there, so I'm just continuing to explode and explode and explode, and now I think we're good in that everything is, there's no groups in this at all, which, again, for like modeling purposes would be the worst thing ever, but for line weight, it's great. So this is good. What I now need to do before I export is actually go ahead and save it. Now, this is only for SketchUp for Schools. If you're using SketchUp Pro, you don't have to do this. You can just go right to File and go to Export. But for SketchUp for Schools, you do have to save it. I'll just hit Yes per draw. Because in SketchUp for Schools, it only exports the last saved view. So now I can go over here and go to Export DWG2D, just like we did before, right? And I'll hit Export. That's pretty good. This is a good practice to get into anyways. But the key here is turning off what are called edges. So if I come over here to the dog and I search for edges, this says View Edges, and I've assigned a keyboard shortcut of V to it. But if I toggle that off, now you can see I am just left with only the things that are touching the air. So these guys are what are called profiles. So if I come over here and I search for profiles, there's one that says View Profiles. And I've set that to be Z on my keyboard. You can set it to whatever you want. But so if I turn that off, then I just have the rendered view. My shadows are on, so if I turn off my shadows, you'll see it looks a little bit different. But we're essentially just seeing the rendered, which could be useful. If we were to do a render, I might have to flip some surfaces and things like that. But in this case, I only want my profiles on. So I'm going to hit my keyboard shortcut of Z here to just turn my profiles on. Again, edges are the things that I'm turning off. So I just toggled my edges back on just to show you what that looks like. So I'm gonna hit V. Again, I've assigned that shortcut. You just come over here, search for edges, and turn those off, essentially. So now we're good. What I now need to do is save this again, though. So I'll go ahead and hit save, and then re-export it. So it's also critical that you don't move your camera view at all. So you notice I've kept this stationary so that the lines align with each other perfectly when we get into Illustrator. So like now we can go again to export DWG 2D, export it again, and we're good. So I've already done this to save you some time here and gone into Illustrator. So here's our flat one, right? This is all one group. Honestly, I could have used this for our demo, but I'll go ahead and turn that off, and I'll go to my edges layer just to show you how you might work. So in Illustrator, I've set up a couple of different layers here. So I've set up one for edges and one for profiles. Just keep those straight whenever you place them. And so I'm going to go ahead and place that in here. Go to File, Place. You'll notice it's also Shift Control P. That's what I tend to do. But so keep track of generally which ones are which. I've already gone ahead and done these, so I know which one's what. So I'm going to hit Place. I'm scaling mine to fit artboard because I'm not worried about what the scale is right now just for this demo. I'm going to go ahead and click in this top left corner. That's just a good reference point for me to click. And actually, I picked the wrong one. So this is the profiles. So you can see that it's a little bit sparse. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on that and move it to the profiles layer. So go to Arrange, Send to Current Layer. So there we go. So there's the profiles. I'll click on edges and do the other one. So Shift Control P. And it's this one. And I will click in the exact same point as much as I can. If I don't get it perfect, that's okay. I've put them on different layers for that reason. And so now if I click off, you're seeing that they should be aligned. So you can see I'm a little bit off here. That's why having these on different layers can be useful. So I'm just aligning these drawings. They should snap right on top of each other fairly well. So there we go. All right, so I still don't have any line weight yet, though. I'm actually going to click and drag and just move this whole thing over. And I'll scale it down a little bit just so it's not all the way to the edge here. I'm going to grab from a corner and hold Shift and Alt just so that it goes towards the center of my screen. Like that. I have a little bit of white space around it, which is good. And so now here's where we get our line weight. And so what I like to do is I'm just going to turn off my profiles. So I just have my edges, and I'll click on it. It comes in as a group, which is really handy. And come over here to Properties, and you can set this to whatever. I like to do 0.5 for my edges, essentially. Right? So these are the ones where we can see the change in direction happening. And then I'll turn on my profiles and turn off my edges. Click on that to select the whole thing, and I like to go to 1.5 here. So I have to manually type that in. I think 2 is a little bit beefy, and 1 is not quite enough. So if I click off now, you can see that is a little bit darker. Now if I turn on my edges again, now we're getting that line weight in there without me having to do like any work. Again, you can imagine if I did this manually, it would just take forever. And so, yeah. Really, really fast workflow for getting the exact same, drawing with good line weight in there. So, yeah, just wanted to show you that in going to Illustrator.